Fiber friends. Welcome to the Fiber Artist Podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. Today's guest is the visionary fiber artist, Erik Bergrin, based in Brooklyn, New York. Erik has an exhibition currently up at the Morris Museum in New Jersey titled The 8 Dissolutions, on view until July 10th. I saw the show a few weeks ago with my 8-year-old, and it is 1000% worth the trip to see the materials up close and in person. Erik and I go into depth about the work in this show, the unusual materials he works with, like, for example, kombucha leather, which he creates using, you guessed it, the SCOBY. You know, like the slimy thing at the bottom? Anyway, we talk about life experiences and ideas that prompted Erik to create this work. We talk yoga, Buddhism, processes of life and death. We pretty much cover the whole gamut. Erik's works are truly striking, with an inherent investigation into the macabre. I highly recommend for this one that you check it out on YouTube, because we walk through some of the work and you really need to see what it looks like to get an idea of what we're talking about. So head over to the YouTube channel to watch, and don't forget to give us a little like and comment and subscribe if you haven't yet. Finally, if you'd like to take a little fiber shopping trip, head over to neuromastudio.com and get 15% off all your favorite fibers using the code PODFRIEND. Rope, wool, yarn, string, recycled silks, you name it, we probably have it. Again, the code is PODFRIEND for 15% off at Neuroma Studio. And without further ado, you can find Erik online at erikbergrin.com and on Instagram at Erik Bergrin. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Here's Erik.
I'm Erik Bergrin. It's same name on Instagram, Bergrin. That's all I need to promote, really.
Okay, awesome. Just to let everybody know, Erik and I have never really chatted before. I didn't even really know that much about your work. And it was so weird last week when I was on Instagram and I was checking my DMs, and all of a sudden I got this flood of like 20 messages from 2019. And one of them was from you. And I was like, and I didn't know that it was that, I didn't know it was old. When I saw it, I thought it was a new one. And you were just saying, hey, I like the podcast, just reaching out, whatever. And then I checked out your work and I was like, oh, cool. It's really interesting. I would love to talk to this guy. And so I responded, yeah, you know, like, let's do a pod. And then I went back and looked at the date and I was like, oh my God, this is from 2019. Like, how did this happen? And then the coolest thing is that you have a show up right now at the Morris Museum. And I'm like, wait a minute. And I don't know. For me, I feel like it's like so serendipitous when things like this happen, because I mean, the Morris Museum, by the way, people, it's 20 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
So
I think I messaged you after I had a show in 2018, but I know it wasn't too long after I did that show. And and it's kind of good. Yeah, because it, aligned with the show that I have up now. Yeah.
The timing worked out like so well. So I actually went with my 8-year-old. He had a sick day, quote unquote sick day. He had a little cough, and so I didn't want to send him because I feel like the teachers will look at me sideways, because of COVID and everything. So I said, oh, he'll stay home with me that day. And that was the day I was planning to go see the show. And I was like, well, I guess I'll bring him. It's funny because he likes sort of dark aesthetic things. Like, he's really into Tim Burton, and he loves horror characters. Like, he draws Freddy and Jason all the time and like all this stuff. And I was like, maybe he'll like it. Who knows? So I brought him.
So what was his feedback? Like, what did he?
It was interesting. He was like, okay, so the mannequins with the clothes are kind of cool, but he was really, the video. There's a video in the exhibition, and he goes, it made me feel really weird. And he didn't, it's funny because he can't really put words to it. He just said it made me feel weird, maybe a little icky. And he goes, but the clothes were pretty cool. It was like, okay.
You know what it is? I think about the video that adds another element. It's the sound.
The sound, 100%.
Yeah, and the volume that it's out right now is like the loudest they would let me do it, because there's another exhibition like kind of close by that has sound and it can't obviously interact. But I really wanted that to be like as loud as possible and just kind of blast throughout the gallery. And so you're kind of bombarded with a overlapping of all the sounds put together.
The sound is so powerful. Like it gives you that visceral thing. You're like, what am I watching? What am I listening to? And it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot to take in. It's so fascinating. I cannot wait to get into your brain and understand a little bit about what makes you you and how you became the creative person you are today. I mean, yeah, let's go back. Can you tell me like where you're from? Where'd you grow up? And, I don't know. I'm really curious about how you came to not only the aesthetic that you're drawn toward, but also the subject matter. Because I know the show is about Buddhism. It's titled The 8 Dissolutions. So yeah,
Sure.
I'm sure we'll get into that as you tell me about your background.
I grew up in Jersey, in like central Jersey, and it was
nice.
very kind of normal. Yeah, it was like an hour from the Morris Museum. So yeah, I mean, it was very like normal. But I think when I turned 18, I started going to nightclubs and I started dressing up and going out. And they were always like kind of kooky outfits that I would make to go out. And it started with like just taking refurbished clothing and redoing it. And then I started making my own stuff. And then I bought a sewing machine and would, get a bolt of fabric and lay a t-shirt and cut around it and then have two of those and sew them together. And then I put together a portfolio of like stuff that I've made. And then I ended up getting a job at a costume shop. Then at the costume shop, they did all this stuff for the Macy's Day Parade and big like foam team mascots and stuff. And I ended up working there for like 9 months. My friend had got me in when they were in a bind. And then from there were all of these other shops that did stuff for Broadway and historical replica stuff. And I was like over hire at shop to shop. And then that's really where I learned all my skills from. But during the time that I was working there, I mean, I was always making my own stuff. Like I would always just, I would like bathe myself in the techniques that I would learn because I would be so excited about it. And then I would just constantly be making stuff at home.
So before you even started working at the costume shop, did you did you take sewing classes or where did you get the foundation? Did you just play around? How did this?
I was just playing around and it was a lot of, YouTube wasn't even a thing back then, but it is now. And I learned so much off of YouTube, but yeah, I was just playing around. I mean, to make clothes, like everyone has clothes. So you just kind of put clothes on fabric and cut around it. And then you can sew a line straighter. And then, I don't know, the progression, you start to learn more and more and more. And especially in the shops, like they would teach me everything. I mean, I think anybody can, if they can operate a sewing machine, can make a garment that you can wear. And especially the stuff that I was making it was like kooky club clothes, so it didn't have to look perfect. And I think, just refining skills in costume shops is but then at one studio I worked at, I took a bunch of classes at FIT. So, but I think if I enrolled properly, I would still be a freshman, but I just took like pattern making 1 and 2 and sewing 1 and 2 and drawing 1 and 2, draping, and I learned a lot from that. But I mean, no, I just always was like more experimental, and I never cared. I mean, they would make us do assignments like go to Saks and find who your girl you're dressing is, and I'm like, I don't want to dress girls. I just want to dress like aliens, like figures, like non-existent things. And I did learn a lot of construction skills from there, but it was just from like making over and over and over.
Right. So even your desire to dress, did you say aliens?
Well, I mean, I just use that as, yeah, I did. But I think it's more, I wasn't interested in beauty. And I think a lot of fashion, it's about beauty. It's about making women look better and making women empowered. And I just never cared about that stuff. I mean, of course, I want that, but it wasn't my artistic goals. And the FIT sort of pushed you in that direction because
it's the Fashion Institute. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. I never really costume is one thing, but it's for a stage and it's for a performance of some sort. And I kind of never really, I don't know, if I had a job, I would do it for that, but I wasn't interested in performance really either. So I just it didn't really have a place. And eventually the work started getting more elaborate. And then I took it off the body at one point and started making like these guys behind me, these big kind of weaving things. And then I had a show in 2018 that was just large, strictly kind of fiber sculptures. There was more than weaving. And then for the 8 Dissolutions projects, I wanted to put it back on the body. I'm like, oh, let me go to my roots, really. And I really wanted to make the video, and I wanted people to be involved in it and like have it on live people and stuff like that. So it really came at like the slow progression.
Right. So, okay. So let's go back to even the other show you were talking about with the sort of figure like woven basket. I don't know how to describe it. Sorry. Everybody go onto the YouTube. You can see it behind him. What was the impetus for that show? Like what made you want to create these objects, and what was the meaning behind them?
So it had to do with my spiritual practice, which is kind of a strict Buddhist meditation, a specific type of meditation that I do. But it was a lot about, I went on a retreat. It was sort of a longer retreat, and I had this experience where I realized my own mental hell, how I was putting myself through my own mental hell, which is basically like reinforcing negative thoughts over and over until I died, and then born again, and then it's doing the same, and spending a lifetime doing that and dying and born again. And I just kind of realized I was doing that to myself. And Shadow Work, which is the name of the show, was sort of an investigation into how to stop doing that. And that was the point of it, was to it wasn't like I was looking for answers. I was just trying to investigate a little more. So there are 9 pieces. They're each like 7 foot tall, and the pieces are it's like kind of a ritualistic telling of like how I did that to myself. And I have my book here. So this is incentive to watch the video, because I always record. when I listen to podcasts, I never watch videos. I always do it audio.
Me too.
So it's good to convince people to watch the video too, because then they can sing. It's like story time, like in this photo.
Totally.
So can I go through it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So it starts off with this piece, which is this is the kind of the opening of the ritual. So this is all like boiled wool.
Is it like the chakras?
Yeah. And so the candles are lit. There are candles inside, and they're all made of resin and wax. And that's when the ceremony is kind of beginning. And then you get to this piece, which is, this is all sage. So we shot, this is a photograph from this magazine called King Kong. So like halfway through the project, we shot 5 of them for the magazine. But this is all woven. It's like this 5 or 6 panels of woven. And that's when the sage is lit, and you're kind of dusted with the sage before the ceremony.
Oh, wow.
And then this one, it's all coiled. So it's like 1-inch pieces of fabric, and it's like a big blue piece. I should describe them for the audio people. It's a big blue piece that's like, it has a Tibetan singing bowl in the middle, and it's all coiled, and it's supposed to look like a mandala. So it's just like 1-inch strips of fabric that are wrapped in roving and thread, and then sewn into these like 3D shapes.
Wow.
So you can kind of see them on this. So in this piece is when the bell in the middle is rung and the ceremony is ready to begin. And then there goes this one, which is a large jute. It's all made of jute rope, and I had to build. I learned weaving from YouTube too, and so I had to build a loom for this one because I didn't want any seams in it. And I was in another studio at this point. It was so big that when I moved the studio, I had to leave it there because I couldn't get it out without undoing it, which probably would.
Really? That's sad.
I know. I mean, it was like a frame loom, so it's just a bunch of nails and wood and stuff. And I don't know. But anyway, this piece. It's called Juanita, and it's basically like the body. It's all made of jute rope, and the body is split open, and there's like kind of black nails and different wires and stuff inside, and that's kind of when, after the ceremony starts, the body split open and all that junk is sort of ready to be exposed. And this part, I'll get back to this one, but this one was sort of the key in how to get out of this whole cycle. So this one is actually my favorite. It was my least favorite after I made it, and now it's my most favorite, actually, looking back at it.
And where is this piece now? Where are these pieces now?
They're dispersed. So like they're different pieces are in different places. Some are in storage. I have one here. There's a couple in people's houses, and the rest are, I have to get back on that. I think most of them are in storage though. This one that's a real person. It's called the crematorium, and it looks like a giant chimney. That's all black, and it's all woven. It's jute rope and wool, and then the top is all coiled. So these are all coiled pieces.
Oh, wow.
And then this one is the cocoon, which is all wool that's woven together on a structure, and then it's done. This part in the middle is all reed, and the kind of tentacle looking parts on the bottom are all reed that are woven over. And then the last three are, so this is so cool. I did a retreat at this monastery in Nepal, and which is where I first learned about this, which is this one here. And the last three pieces are called the disappearing of the rainbow body, 1, 2, and 3. So in this monastery, it's so cool. There's this room that they took us to at the end of the retreat, I guess, that when you're enlightened, when you become enlightened, and after you die, you're burned usually, and they build these pyres for them that they burn them in, and they find relics in the ashes after the enlightened beings are burned. And so they have a room in the monastery full of all these like they're usually pearls that grow every year. So they're in these cases, and they're measured out, and they have the measurements next to them in very minuscule amounts that they grow, but they grow every year, and they leave these relics. So it's so cool. I mean, I was like, it's kind of like hard to believe that this is happening, but I just thought it was like a cool kind of concept. But the 3 rainbow body pieces they're large woven pieces made of reed that's all dyed. And then they have these strings, nylon threads coming from the center. And this one's black here. And then this is the second rainbow body piece, which is a large green piece, and it has a little mummy inside. Do you see him?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And then this is all black here. Well, it's blacker. Down the strings become black. And this is the last one, which is all black. Like the strings are all black. So it's this large red reed piece with all coiled inside. And the rainbow body, the disappearance of the rainbow body, but the rainbow body phenomenon is a concept that if at the time of death you become enlightened, your body shoots out into rainbow light. Wow. It just kind of explodes. And there's all these cases of that happening, whether it's true or not. But I just thought the disappearing of the rainbow body is basically the elimination of that rainbow light disappearing. So the whole thing was this ritualistic telling of like how we put ourselves through this mental health, the negative thoughts, the body split open, you become the thoughts, and then everything that's good is being sucked away, which is the rainbow body pieces. And then in the show, I had it in 2018, it was at Marlboro, and it was all dirt. I had the gallery where the pieces were filled with dirt, and they were in a circle. So it's kind of this, circular motion of like doing this and reinforcing over and over. But this fourth piece, the one of jute called Juanita, this is sort of the key to, I think, getting out of it. So when I went I had traveled around Peru 1 year, and there's this museum in Arequipa. If anybody goes to Peru, make a trip to this museum. It's in the city called Arequipa, and it's this mummy called Juanita that's there, and it's sort of based around it. But this mummy was found forever ago, and she was held in an ice box, and basically what they found, she was preserved. And the whole museum, they explain in the beginning via video, like what happened. But basically, they took her on a 3-day journey in the Andes and then hit her on the side of the head with a rock and sacrificed her to their god, Pachamama. And, it's like horribly, horribly gruesome. But part of it is they picked her when she was, age 0 to 2 or whatever, when she was very young to be sacrificed. Mm-hmm. And it was, I don't know. I remember they take you through the museum. It's very dark. There's all these objects that she was buried around with. So you get to see weavings and different like silverware and pots and pans and stuff like that, cooking stuff. And then they take you into the room, they part the curtain, and then it's super, super dark. So your eyes take a minute to adjust. And then there's her in a box, like curled up, and it's an ice box. And I was like, I never had an interest in mummies. I didn't really know. I was so struck by this. It was like bone chilling. It was amazing. And the whole experience was like, it's a cool sight. I love that stuff, of course. But like I knew there was more to it than that. And I sort of realized that, like, I don't know, I just became like this idea of like knowing you're going to die at a young age. She knew she was like 12 or 14 when she died. So she knew for like 10 years that she was going to be sacrificed.
Right.
And I was like, there is no, according to the grand scheme of the universe, like that's our life. Like in the beginning to the end, it's like 100 years is like nothing. There really is no difference between these 10 years of knowing you're going to die and our 100 years of knowing. Right. And there is none. And I was like, that's why it was so striking, is because I feel like you could either use that knowledge of death is coming to completely be trapped in fear, like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Like I have to make every moment count, or be completely liberated. Like nothing matters because it's going to be over so soon. So that was really the point of shadow work, was like how to get out of what I'm sort of doing to myself. Like, and I feel like that fourth piece, Juanita, was sort of the answer. And actually the Dissolutions, which was the next project, was a continuation of that, because it was all about the death process, really.
So can you, okay. Before you explain the Dissolutions, let's go back to Peru. When in your life did you go on that trip?
I was there like 6 years ago, I think.
Okay.
Something, maybe 7.
And because I was going to ask you, like that's probably the answer, but I was going to ask, were there moments in your life, or either a piece of art or a movie that you saw that completely changed, like the inside of you, that resonated so hard inside of you that it's sort of like it took you on the path that you're on today, which sounds like seeing Juanita really kind of, it sort of, it was like this jumping off point for you creatively. And I think and within you, I guess, not even just like, in terms of your work or whatever, but what was happening inside you at the time.
Yeah, there's a couple points. I mean, it's especially when things that I've traveled to. I mean, I was in in Burma for a month, and I remember seeing there's this really chilled out sort of lake city called Inle Lake, and I remember going there, and it's surrounded by mountains, and it's so beautiful. It's just an incredible sight and an incredible city, and especially after like traveling so long, and it was so chill to be there that I don't know, I was like in bliss while I was there. But it's surrounded by mountains, and I remember looking at those mountains and being like, all I could I was alone, so I was like writing in a journal a lot, and I just remember thinking about like freedom when I was
Mm.
looking at that, and I had to like constantly kind of analyze it because I was like, I know if I was like plopped down in those hills, like running around, it really wouldn't equal freedom because I hate trekking. There's tons of bugs. It was the hottest time of the year. It
Yeah.
was in the forest. It wouldn't be pleasant at all. But I kind of realized that that site made me, and I think whenever anybody travels and sees something and just like so beautiful that it makes them weak, it makes them want to cry.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that. It was like what freedom really is stripping away all the filters until you're looking at something so beautiful that you have no more fear. And it's nothing that's hard anymore. It just weakens you into a state of vulnerability and tenderness. And I think that state is what real freedom is all about. It's just not having any guards. You know, Nina Simone said it amazing in her documentary, where that documentary is so good. And there was like a famous line where she was like, I'll tell you what freedom is, no fear, you know? And she's like, I feel that when I'm on stage. And that, it took me a minute to figure what that was, but like that whole documentary was shocking because she was so angry. Her whole life, she was fighting for Black rights.
Yeah.
And she was so angry that she had to move to Africa to get away from it with good reason, of course. But after hearing that, I was so shocked because I didn't know any of that. I know her music, but I didn't know any of that stuff about her. And I was so shocked because when she opens her mouth, it's the most angelic, beautiful, gentle. I mean, that song "Wild is in the Wind," "Wild in the Wind," "Wild as the Wind." That makes me cry every single time I listen to it. It's so beautiful, and I was so shocked to hear that because I would never expect that to be coming from. There's anger, you know,
Mm.
for an angry person, and I think that when she goes on stage, she's able to take that anger and really transform it into something that's like so angelic and soft and beautiful.
Mhm.
And it, you know, they say that like all delusions, which is like any sort of negative, like anger, jealousy, hate, all of that is like a delusion. The root of that is fear. And if you're able to take that and translate it into something that's so real and gorgeous and beautiful, that's real alchemy, you know? That
Yeah.
is real. She is a wizard. I mean, she is the wizard in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
And I think that's always been my goal of trying to achieve, and not to put it in a great gallery. I mean, of course I want to do that. It's amazing, but it's more because I don't want it in me anymore.
Right.
And that was the point of shadow work, really. I mean, that's the point of all my work, really.
Right. Right. Where do
So
you
many
think
the mount.
all the inner feelings that you want to get out and all the processes of going through all this and finding it in your art to express all of it, where do you think that all came from with the way that you were treating yourself and the way, you know?
I think it's just a thing that everybody has. I mean, I'm not particularly, you know, I don't want to comparatively, you know, I'm not like depressed or I'm pretty happy. But I think if you
It's the human
anybody
condition, right? To always have.
and I think if anybody really digs into themselves, there's a lot of stuff there. I mean these retreat, you know, my like meditation retreats, they help me go to a place. But if anybody even goes to therapy and has like one moment where they like all of a sudden start crying and they get in touch with something, you realize that you have a subconscious and there's stuff buried there, you know, and it's there's something deeper there. And so I think if anybody actually like digs into themselves, you'll find all of that stuff that's been buried there. And I've just been doing this work for, I mean, not the like artwork, but more mind training work that I just get excited about digging it up, you know?
Well, that's what I mean, that's what I find so fascinating too. I mean, the fact that are you an actively practicing Buddhist?
Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the correct terminology.
Yeah, well, it is the correct terminology.
So like what brought you to even explore that? Because, you know, we live in a Western world that's not, you know, it's like if you grew up with any religion around here, it's either, you know, Catholicism or Christianity, maybe, you know, Judaism, whatever. It's like the three, right? And Buddhism and Hinduism don't play a huge role just in our Western United States and our culture. So I guess I'm curious, it's like, how did you first get into that? Like, did someone else introduce it to you, or?
Not kind of. I mean, it started through yoga. I mean, I had like, you know, I was on like a long road trip and we were driving a lot and my body was all like from being in the car. And I remember sitting on a poolside and being like, if I don't do something about my body, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Like, and so I came back and I took a yoga class in a studio for an hour every single day, 7 days a week for 8 months. And I was like in bliss for like, I've never experienced anything like that before. And I have never since then. And I don't expect that outcome, anybody or anything like that, but it was amazing. And so I had a teacher that would do like 5 minutes of meditation before. And then from there, I was like, there's really something to this, you know? And then I was reading books, and I honestly, The Power of Now completely, I read that like forever ago, and that opened me up to a whole new thing. And then someone mentioned this 10-day Vipassana retreat, which they're pretty popular. They're like all over the US and all over the world, but it's 10 days and it's like you go there and they take everything away from you. So there's like no reading or writing or you can't speak for the 10 days. And it's like 10 to 12 hours of meditation a day. And it's really strict and it's sheer torture. It's really hard. But someone told me about it and I was like, that's amazing and scary. And then a year later I went, and then I was like, I'm glad I went, but I'll never do that again. It was so hard.
10 days of zero talking.
You can talk like day 10, but you get there on day 0. So it is proper. Yeah.
Right. And no writing. So you can't even get out what you
no writing,
were thinking of.
No talk. And then you're supposed to not make eye contact with people. And then there's like a couple times a day you're sitting for an hour in a meditation hall, and then you're meditating on your own. But you listen to, and every day they get into the technique more at the end of the day. And they explain about what you're doing basically for the next day and this and that. And it's incredible, but it's hard.
Yeah.
And it's not just hard mentally, it's really hard physically because you're sitting on a meditation cushion and your bones are like aching. But anyway, I got out of that and it planted a seed, which I started researching and reading books. And I went to Shambhala Center and took 1 million classes. And then I went here and there and there. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready for Vipassana again. And then I went back, and then I went back again, and then I went back again. And then, I don't know, I found a teacher that's really good and that breaks things down kind of scientifically and logically and practically. And it's not just like, you know, I'm talking about rainbow body and all of this kind of ethereal, airy stuff. And it's so not like that. It's so much more grounded than that. You know, it's like, this is the way the mind works. And these are what negative thought. These are what positive. You want to take the negative out, and it's really practical. But that's how I sort of got into it. And then I was always making stuff. And at some point my mind practice became so dominant that it just collided with my art practice. It couldn't not.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, that would be the sort of the obvious next step. Wait, so when you were in Nepal on the retreat for the 10 days, how long are they having you sit and meditate?
The Nepal one wasn't that retreat.
Okay.
The Nepal one was 10 days, and it was at this monastery called Kopan Monastery. And it was 10 days, but it was all visualizations because the Tibetans love their visualizations. Vipassana, the other retreats, it's not visualization. It's sitting there and you start focusing on your breath in the beginning, and then you start to scan your body for sensations. So it's like more kind of internal in a sense. At Kopan in Nepal, that one was divided through all the minute visualization. So we would sit for an hour at a time, and it would be like, it was much later. We started at 6 a.m. and I think we ended at 9 p.m. But it was like, and you couldn't talk for half the day there.
Okay.
And so it was a little more tolerable, and it was a lot of learning,
Right.
But,
so you're not just walking alone with your own thoughts, with no other inputs. It's like there are people teaching you, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Wait, and then Vipassana, where's that one?
That I usually went to the one in Massachusetts. There's a center in Massachusetts, and then I also did a 10-dayer in Burma, and that was the same one, but that one was hard because the conditions were so different that it was the same format and the same like schedule breakdown, but it was just a different place. So it was like the food was different.
Right. So what are you going through mentally and emotionally when you're going through these retreats? Like, what is going through your mind? And do you break, like when you were talking about yoga, I was thinking about how there have been a couple times where I was I'll be in shavasana, and you just break down weeping.
Right.
Do these retreats like put you in a place where where you're processing like in this way?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of don't even want to steer, but I'll just talk personally for
your own experience. This is strictly your own experience.
The Vipassana 10-day ones, it's a lot. Maybe you get there eventually, but it's a lot of like, I remember one time, like I watched The Karate Kid. It was like some song in some movie that would not shut up in my head. I mean, it was like over and over and over. All I kept doing is like picturing this one part, and I watched it like right before I came there, and I don't remember what song it was, but all I was doing was like, I remember this sounds a little extreme, but it's what they do. And if you're like have been there a couple of times, they give you it's called a cell, but don't think of it as prison. It's basically just a carpeted room that you could sit alone in the dark. But I was in a cell, and I was there, and I remember the thoughts came up over and over, and it was just the same lines from Karate Kid and this one song.
Isn't that the last song? You're the best around.
Different song, and I don't remember what it was. And it probably, I wouldn't even say it because it's probably really embarrassing. It's probably like some musical or something. I really don't remember though. But there was, these thoughts just kept coming up, and I was like, at some point I was, you have to just knock them down. You can acknowledge them and come back to your breath and say thinking, which is a kind way. But at some point, you have to really go to war with it. I mean, you have to be like, no. Every time it comes up, being like, you are not going to dominate my monkey mind, as they say. And so you really have to go to war with your mind. And you think it's supposed to be these like deep childhood memories that come up. And sometimes they do. But a lot of the times it's that stuff that's trying to take your mind away. And I realized that they call it karas, which is like negative things that are coming up. They come up in forms like that are trying to distract you. And I realized that I was fighting these things the whole time instead of trying to be present enough that stuff will come up. That was that, So, deep childhood memories come up and shit that you didn't even think that you remembered from like preschool and stuff. And it doesn't have to be like trauma or anything. Could be, but a lot of stuff is like just weird memories that you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's like the stuff that's at the surface, like the stuff, like whatever you think about as you're falling asleep or what gives you insomnia, which is, it's not usually the childhood stuff. It's like, yeah.
And you get great. I got amazing. My creative ideas are like so amazing. And it's, at some point you realize that like, you're like, okay, I don't want to forget this because I can't write it down.
That's what I was thinking.
Like,
can you sketch it? That's
yeah, you can't do anything. And so you keep reminding yourself these great ideas that probably aren't really that great, but it's just your mind trying to distract you. It's like, oh, I know that it's really sticky if I give him a great weaving idea when he gets home. So I'm going to, I don't know who's acting, doing this, but like implanting these thoughts that like make you want, but it's just trying to distract you from actually doing any work,
Right.
That is the work, is to like get away from those kind of things,
It's so hard though, because I feel like there's a huge conflict there. Like I would want it to be like the reason I go do those things to clear the mind so that the creative ideas will flow, so that those things will come in.
Yeah.
But you're supposed to be working on your inner work.
And it took me a minute to realize that, because I was like, I don't want to lose these ideas.
Yeah.
10 days, I'm going to forget. But at some point, you're like, this is actually just another distraction. It's knows, I don't even know what it is, but it's really sticky. You want to develop the idea, and you have all this time, and you're completely bored, and you want to kind of make this a grand better and blah, blah, blah. But it's just distracting you from actually doing the work.
Right. Right. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like,
it's the same.
I get it. I totally get what you're saying, but I'm like, oh, it's so frustrating. I think I would get so angry. Like, but then you have to put the anger aside and like overcome that part of it, to really get down to where you're just like stripping yourself of all of it, I guess.
But that is the work.
Yeah.
Too. You're stripping yourself to get some, you're calming the waves, and then you're seeing all the skeletons and the tin cans and the bloody old boots that have been under the ocean for so long. But you have to calm the wave in order to do that. And you're doing all of it at once, really.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So then in 2018, you do shadow work.
Yeah.
I also saw
shadow work in 2000, but I did it for 4 years before that.
Wow.
It took me a long time to make those.
So you're at the Marlborough Gallery for that show. Is that who like represents you?
No, they didn't represent. I just showed there for that one show.
Okay. How did that come about?
I got a email from the curator called Leo Fitzpatrick, just wanting to do a studio visit. And I set up the pieces, and he came for a studio visit, and then was like, I want to show these. I mean, it's really kind of well, so because part of this podcast, and I know you, thank you. I think you said you've listened to a few episodes, but a lot of people who are listening, I think, are really curious on how to get into the gallery world and how to just get noticed or whatever. So I guess I'm asking, how did the curator know of your work? Have you been like sending your work out, just like contact sheets and things like that? Or how are you doing it these days? Well, with that show, I was recommended from someone that I knew. Mm-hmm. With this Morris Museum show, the director, he actually just left, but the director of the Morris Museum was the director of MAD, the Museum of Art and Design.
Oh, okay.
So I knew him through that, and I just emailed, and I knew him through like a personal friend too, who had like connected us, and I showed him shadow work, and he was like, well, our museum is more art, sound, and motion. And he was like, it doesn't really fit. And so I just emailed him with like, when I finished the Dissolutions, saying like, hey, here they are. And he came for a studio visit, and I broke down the materials and all of that stuff with him there, and wanted to know it. Yeah. But I try to send out like PDFs. I have a PDF of like the whole Dissolutions and all the material breakdown and all that stuff. And I don't know, it's tricky because it doesn't.
I have to say, so after having seen the work in person, I mean, it's so hard to translate it in a a two-dimensional media format. It's like so different when you see it in person. I mean, just like the textures and even knowing what the materials are. Like, for example, I mean, you use a SCOBY kombucha leather that you've made, which, I mean, can you talk about this process? I mean, I'm trying to explain this over a podcast format, but what I really want to do is just have everybody go to the Morris Museum, go look at the show, and then you'll understand what we're talking about. Like, these materials he uses is crazy. Like, he's got aluminum threads, horsehair, in addition to like seaweed, like so many different kinds of earthy materials, but that are so unconventional. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Okay, so the 8 Dissolutions is it's a Buddhist death process that in 8 stages, the senses and the elements all shut down. So this is the process that is supposed to happen when you die. Whether it is or not, I don't know, but I wanted to do it for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons was to get a sort of insight into if it's possible, really, or how this is a way of really like kind of cherishing your life, is to like, Buddhists love to meditate on their own death. It's a big thing. Mm-hmm. And the purpose of it is just so you enjoy your life. I mean, if you just even think about someone close to you dying, close your eyes and like really concentrate, you'll forgive them of like any, you know what I mean? It's a way of doing that. Mm-hmm. So I did it during COVID. As soon as COVID started, I started making this project and seeing all the morgue trucks outside of 14th Street and all of that. It was like crazy, I almost didn't even need to do it because I could just look outside my window in New York. But I learned it at Copeland Monastery. It was a visualization meditation, and there's a meditation that could take you through the whole process. And I did that over and over. And when I was doing it, I always had visualization. And there were always, I work with these materials. And so when I was visualizing it, that's the materials that sort of came to me. It sounds a little like magician-y, but what I mean by came to me is like, I thought of these textures. Like when I was doing the one that's made of kombucha, it was a material that was like wet, slick, and transparent, leathery, and there was no material like that I could think of. And so I was like, okay, how do I make this? And then there was ones with like crystals that I grew on it, and there was no material that I can get, so I had to figure out a way to do it. But basically, each piece, there's 8 pieces, and then there's a figure in the middle in a video. Each piece is a representation of the 8 dissolutions. So in step 1, what happens is the earth element starts to dissipate, and then your sight starts to go. So this is what you picture. You picture your body going into the earth, your arms start to go behind your back, and your sight starts to go. And then that gives rise to the second, which is water and sound. So all the water dries up from the body, the fluids from the body, which is 4 elements of water. And then your hearing starts to go. And that's the second, third. And so each I just did the visualization over and over. And I would start to get all these like visuals, and then I would draw them out. And then, and then we made the video, number 1, so you could show they're real people. Because in the show, I have them they're on mannequins, but I made all the heads for it. So they're full body sculptures, but you can actually wear the pieces. So we made a video that has people wearing them as well. And then I made each of the 8 dissolution pieces. It's connected with a mudra, which is like, this is a mudra, like praying hands is a mudra, any kind of like, it's just a hand gesture basically. Because when I was doing it, I noticed that my hands always wanted to go in a certain place. So like when we were the Dissolution 1, the earth element dissipates, your body goes into the ground, your arms go behind your back. And then, I always noticed my hands went. So each one, and the same way. So like, here's Dissolution 1, I have a photo of it. And this is all felted. And then this is like the top, the skirt is all felted. And then the top is like 300 and something strips of linen that are kind of woven in this diamond pattern. and they're all different colors. And then the head for it, that's a real person, but the head is made of seaweed. And then this is the mudra for it. So the mudra, I photographed someone doing those hand positions and then printed them on fabric and then made them into dresses. And then for the video, we had, because when I did this meditation alone and I was like moving during it, I'd always notice because of the hand gestures. So I always noticed my hands going. I felt like it became like kind of Buddha, just expressing this like kind of violent, almost looking thing. And I was doing it alone in my room. So it's not like I was trying to impress everyone with how like, movement oriented I am and how esoteric and like airy fair, it wasn't like that at all. I was alone. And so I don't know. I did a residency at Governor's Island, and there was an open studio, and Yoko, who is the Buto dancer in the video, came, and she was like, oh my God, these pieces, I had a couple pieces up, and she was like, they're so Buto. And I was like, oh my God, because I told her that story. And I was like, I'm going to make a video with this. And I was like looking for a Buto dancer. And she was like, I'm a Buto dancer.
That's amazing.
And so, yeah. And so they came and danced for the video, and she acted as the mudra teacher, and so she basically was the one who made the gestures that the sculpture pieces would kind of follow. But there's a lot of the materials were there's an element of sustainability, of course, because it's super organic, but it was also, how do I create these alien materials that I've never seen before? And a lot of it, like number 2, this is water. So this is a fabric. I bought this. It's made of bark tree material, the body, and then I embedded these tetraglyphs into it. And then this is all hammered aluminum, and then this is all felted. And then this is number 3, which is this big black dress, which is all coiled. And this is like, it's basically like piping that's covered in roving and wrapped with threads, and then I painted it all with plasti dip and sewed it around a form. And then there's a drum embedded in the middle, because I play the handpan, which is like a steel drum, and I make drums too. And that's number 3. And then number 4 is a big white felted one with the lungs, because this number 4 has to do with the air element, and
air and taste, right?
Air and taste, and that's why she's throwing up that black stuff. And then this one, it starts to get with 5, 6, 7, and 8, starts to get more kind of esoteric it's associated with visions, basically. So this is the vision of the white sky, and it's a white dress that has a triangle drum in the middle. And then this is all piping. So it's piping covered in roving and wrapped with threads and then sewn into these 3D shapes. And then this is the number 6 is the radiant red sky. So this is all, the body is all kombucha leather in the middle. These are drums, circle drums in the middle. And then this, the shell, it's reed that's all dyed red and woven into a body form. And then it's covered with a layer of chiffon that's painted with silicone. So that's how it gets so slick. And then the number 7 is a black one. And the body of this it's all woven. My friend Cynthia Alberto, she's amazing. You should have her too. She runs this weaving company called Weaving Hand. She wove all the body for me. And then the crystals are grown on the arm.
Oh, wow.
So it's just this solution you make with like borax and water, and you make an understructure and dip it, and then the crystals can grow, and then you can spray them whatever color you want. And so that's the woven body. And then there's a crack in the center, and that's all crystals that I grew too. And then with the last one, it's a blue piece, and then the arms go in here, and the mudra is like this. And so the blue part, and then there's a black part, that's all seaweed. It's a textile developed from sodium alginate, which is seaweed. It's a cooking You mix it with sodium alginate, glycerin, water, and pour it over sheep's wool, and then spray it with calcium chloride. It's really easy, but it sounds really, all these chemicals.
Sounds like chemistry, yeah.
It's, whatever. But it makes this textile.
It's beautiful, yeah.
And then in the center, it's all bismuth, which is it's an element, I guess, too, but it comes in a silver block and you can melt it down and it crystallizes when you put it to other metals. So I made bismuth crystals to put down the center because the last piece is about emptiness, and it's basically like your body exploding into kind of bardo, or into emptiness is like a grand Buddhist concept. And the only way I could like translate that feeling that I was getting was to be like a tiny astronaut in the middle of the Milky Way, and you're just floating there in like nebulas, Yeah. And so that the last piece was based on space, and so that had to be the most like alien material-y one. And so so all the pieces are on display. We photographed them on people, and then we made the video, and there's a figure in the middle that's about to go, and it's wearing a weaving that I wove, and it has hash marks on it and bells, and
the one laying down.
Yeah, in the middle. And each of the pieces is associated with a sound. So in the video, and you can watch the video, it's on Instagram and YouTube and all that. It shows all 8 pieces, but it shows piece 1, and it has the sound, which is a drum that I made because it's the earth element. It's the drum. And then number 2 are these rattles. So it's the drum, and then it shows piece 2, which is the drum and the rattle. And then number 3, and so on. And a lot of the sounds I made with my mouth, and they, there's a breakdown of the sounds too, which goes exactly with the pieces.
There's a breathing sound. I think that, yeah.
That's number 4, which is air. And then there's one, which that's number 3, which is fire.
Okay.
Yeah, so that by number 8, all the sounds are built up, and then it ends, and then you just hear the breathing, and then Yoko doing the Dissolution mudra teaching at the end.
So is the video, is it public on YouTube? What should people look up if they look up Dissolutions? Erik
Bergrin?
My
Instagram. Yeah, there's a link to it in the bio of my Instagram.
Okay.
The director of the video, his name is Arkan Zakharov. If you go to my Instagram, he's tagged all over the place. It's on his YouTube page. So I'm sure if you look up my name and 8 Dissolutions, it'll come up too. But he was brilliant in doing that video because it was very like bare bones, and oh my God, he pulled out so many.
It looks like a big production.
Amazing. It's amazing. And I hate to like praise my own work,
you should. It's
praise him because it was, we talked about it extensively, but like, oh my God, the stuff that he did in person. And the makeup artist, Andrew D'Angelo, did all, and the Billy Schrader did the hair, and just everybody, the models that we got were everyone was just so, it was beautiful. It came together so well. And it was hard to organize.
It really looked like, a beautiful sort of piece of performance art, and very cinematic as well. And I know you've done like costuming for film. You did a horror movie. I don't know when. Is that movie out, by the way?
Did I tell you about that?
No, I went on your Instagram. I was doing my stalking.
Yeah. It is not out yet, but it will be very soon.
Okay. Do you have a title? Is there a title that you're allowed to?
Yeah, it's called A Wounded Fawn.
Okay.
So that, and it'll be on Shudder when it does come out. And I'm not sure when it's going to be on Shudder, but it's going to be out on something else very soon, which I just got word of. So look for that, because that movie is going to be really cool.
Nice. Is that something you want to do more of? Like, how was that experience?
It was amazing. I love doing costumes. While I was doing shadow work, while I was like getting ready for the show, I designed this. John Cameron Mitchell, who did Hedwig and the Angry Inch, he did another tour where he was just talking about the history of Hedwig and singing songs from it. and all that. And I was doing that costume. It was a set of costumes as I was doing getting ready for shadow work. And so I love doing costume stuff.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And yeah, I do want to do more of it. Yeah, for sure. I'm working on a movie now called The Life to Come, which we're filming in June. So I am doing more of it now.
Awesome.
But yeah, costume stuff is great because I get to like pull out all the stops for it, and I have, especially with the Dissolutions, I learned a lot of weird techniques that when it comes to like a horror movie with kind of fantasy characters, you can use all these, you can use all of that stuff to make these foreign materials.
Right. And like the weirder and the more textured it is, like the kind of creepier it can feel and come off on film. But yeah, I mean, I was thinking it must be very rewarding to be able to do something that is going to live on film forever. Or what I say film, I understand everything, like everything's digital now, but like that people are going to see and that you can actually put out in the world that aren't just going to like be up for a couple months in a show and then you put away or it goes into somebody's home or whatever, that it's more public and visible.
And yeah, for sure. I mean, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons I made a shadow work video as well. And I really wanted to do that to make it longer lasting, and everybody loves film.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, and that's how things get seen too. Not everybody can come to the Morris Museum show. So
right.
It's a way of like actually getting the work. It's a way of collaborating. It's a way of making something greater than, because you have all these extra, like, oh my God, the hair and makeup and director and all of that stuff that I had just would add something that I would never be able to do, obviously. So it makes it this grand project and everyone gets excited about it. And I don't know, I would do film all day long if I could. It's so amazing to do.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, I imagine you said you're working alone in your studio during COVID, like that your process of working is pretty solitary. So yeah, then getting to be able to like have contact with people and actually collaborate and work with actual other people is a little departure from having to just kind of be alone in your studio, seeing what works.
I mean, that stuff gets maddening. I had an assistant for when I was doing the Dissolutions that came once a week, and her name's Lauren Hoffman, and she was amazing and part of it was like, there's to help you build and to help it actually go quicker. But some of it was like, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do with this. And she would come in and be like, why don't we try this? And why don't we do this? And it's just like fresh ideas and someone with like a different perspective that stuff's so helpful that it keeps you going,
Yeah, definitely. So, as you've gone through this process of thinking so much about life and death and processing death, and you've gone so thoroughly into it with, creating work around it, how are you feeling in terms of at some point, right? You're going to die. I'm going to die. How are you feeling about approaching your own death? Like thinking about that? Because I don't think about it a lot ever, but talking to you has made me start thinking about it. And I'm like, is he going to be, does this mean he's okay with dying? Like, you know what I mean? Like if Buddhists think about it so often, it makes me think that they get to a point where they're okay with it. Like where that point where they're about to die, they're ready. I don't know. This is like, it literally just came up in my mind.
Well, I mean, I think that thinking about the 8 Dissolutions process makes me, and thinking about what happens after, I read a lot of books about like mind beyond death. Mm-hmm. And I think that nobody knows maybe some people do. I don't know what happens after you die, of course. I can hypothesize based on things that I've studied and learned, and okay, well, I know that this is true and this connects to this, and I've studied this and I've kind of looked into this a little bit, and this proves that this is true. So I can see how it's like learning trigonometry and you don't know anything about numbers. You hear this weird thing about like the most intense math, I guess. And you don't know anything about numbers. You have to learn what a number is first, and then you have to learn addition, and then you have to learn subtraction, which reinforces addition, and then division, which reinforces multiplication, and then through when you learn division, you can be like, oh, I could see how trigonometry is true, although I don't know it yet, And so I think from investigating these processes, I'm maybe not afraid, but it almost wasn't the point. Shadow work became what it was, but that wasn't the point.
It's more about life, right?
Yeah,
actually.
It's more about how you can progress your own mind while you're actually doing the project, I mean, when I showed shadow work in Marlboro, I remember I was at the after party and somebody asked me like, oh my God, how do you feel about this? And I was like, I don't want to feel ungrateful, but I don't feel anything. Like, I wasn't like, wow, I just had the greatest show of my, I
think this happens a lot. By the way, I've heard this so often where it's like this moment that's supposed to be your pinnacle, your grand moment where you feel amazing and everything you work for comes to this moment. But it's so much about the journey of getting there that was so much more than the actual moment.
Yeah. And that's just like obnoxious because it's like a giant cliche, and I don't ever want to be that kind of cliche, but there's no other way. I remember when I was doing that costume for John, and then I was doing shadow work at the same time, I was like killing myself, or I was literally, it was like 17 hours a day for like months straight. It was really hard. And I remember being like coming back from like a garment district trip and being like, I'm so tired and I can't wait for this to be over. But I was like, but when it's over, it's just going to be over. I don't want it to be over because then I wouldn't have anything going on, and just so I can like catch up on sleep. Yeah, that'll be nice, but like I don't want to miss this. Like it's happening now. Come on, like it's happening now. And so I was like, I don't care if I'm tired. I want to really like kind of relish in this because I don't want it to be over,
That's actually such a healthy way to look at it, because I think most people who are that like sleep deprived and just exhausted and whatever be like, oh, I can't wait till this is over. You know what I mean? But you knew in advance that it was like, no, you have to be present for all of it.
Yeah, because then it's over. And then you're like, well, I had a great show and
and then what? I know.
And I don't want to miss it. I'm like, I feel like I was missing it. What, for like the 2 hours of my opening and like, a bunch of Instagram likes afterwards because of people went to go see my show and praised it. That's wonderful. Believe me, I love that. But I missed the 4 or 5 years I spent making that project.
Yeah.
Just for like 1 hour of like happiness that will never come. I'm never going to be chasing that again.
Isn't it amazing? It's the conflict of it all. It's like,
yeah, so like, I don't know. So there is stuff that I've learned, but I think from the however long I was doing the Dissolutions, my mind was developing the whole time. And I would have to probably sit down and be like, how was I before this project to really understand? And I may not even ever get there because it was such a slow progression. But I know that all of these projects really, they don't answer a single question. They help me really become a better person as like, I don't know, kind of cliche as that sounds. It really does progress my mind, which is it's really the most important thing to me about the work, about me making the work. Whatever it is to other people, that's good. But for me, it's really, I don't know. I enjoy doing it, and there's like lots of techniques. I'm like obsessed with learning new things and improving craft, which is a huge thing. I would do it for that reason alone. But if I'm not becoming a more marvelous person because of it, then I'm not doing the work.
Yeah. So do you feel very changed from, let's say, 5 years, say 8 years ago? I don't know. When did you start like creating in this way, where it was more like healing and inner work, as opposed to just like, making something because you feel like making something? Like,
sorry, cut out the last part. Making,
Oh,
what was it?
like,
Making.
yeah. Like, do you feel if you look, say, like, I don't know, 10 years back or whatever, to a point where before you started working in this way, where it is about like processing what's happening inside and like, do you feel changed? Do you feel like you're becoming a more marvelous person? And like you say,
Yeah. Yeah, and it is the work that has been doing that, but it's also the conversation I have on a daily basis with myself and with like other people and interacting with other people and being like, oh, things come up that's like, why are you making this work? And I mean, I didn't know it was going to be in the Morse Museum. I was just making it because I wanted to, and it was like, why are you making this? It's more like giant things. Do people need to see this? And blah, blah, blah. And then I would have to be like, shut up, like in a kind way, but be like, don't let this touch the work. Like, if you have all of these doubts and you have, fine, don't let it touch the work, because then the work will not be pure, and it won't that genuine quality to it. And I think I've learned more from fighting with my own mind, and it makes it sound like I'm some neurotic
not at all.
nutcase.
Not at all. I think it's exactly
really
what every artist struggles with is your inner self-doubt and maybe whatever else is coming in from the outside. But like it's whatever's in you that I think so many people struggle with. So yeah, no, you don't sound crazy at all.
I just mean like fighting with my head all the time and being like, but just, I mean, these thoughts come up, and I know that they're not healthy, and I don't want, not even just doubts, but just like, I'm angry at this person, or why did this person do this, or any of that stuff. Like, I don't want that stuff. It doesn't feel good to be angry. I don't want to be angry. It's not healthy. It's not driving my art. It's not noble to be like, oh, I need it there because it helps me, be in pain, which creates my art. I don't want that. Like, I'd rather just give up making and be a happy person if it came to that. Luckily, they go hand in hand. But, I think from just analyzing my thoughts on a daily basis in reaction to actually doing the work has, for sure, it's changed me into a person that I enjoy being with, which is myself.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. That's great. If you look back at like your 10-year-old self, do you think that he would, like, was there any inkling of you becoming this person today? Like with your interests, your aesthetic sensibilities, the type of curiosity you have, was it at all there when you were around that age?
I don't know. I don't see it. I mean, I look at, I was not like a child who drew all the time or was like this young artist kid at all. I think I just was like a weirdo and just started going out, and then it kind of evolved from there. But I look at, that's
interesting to me. I mean, I ask because I have kids, so I'm like, you think you can see what they're going to become, but I guess you totally fucking can't at all.
And I noticed that, like, I have all these I do have all of these qualities that, like, I'm an Aries, and they're typical, not that I know anything about astrology, but like, let's just say I can see the quality, like, I can see arrogance, and I can see like anger, and I have those qualities, but like, I just now am able to work with them so much that they don't really take over, and maybe other people will never see them, but they do come up, So in that sense, if I remember what I was like as a kid, those qualities I probably do have. But I think from my like changing my mind all these years, I've been able to kind of cope with them in a much better way that it transformed them, really.
Right. Cool. So look forward now. We just look back. Look forward, I don't know, 10 years. Where would you like to see you and your work headed?
I would like to do more movies. I would really like to. I mean, the museum show is a great format, I think, for me, because it's a lot of teaching of the materials that has to do with it. And there's a lot of information that goes along with it too. Not that you need it, but I like when people know those materials and blah, blah. So I think the museum setting, because it's like a learning setting, it's a really good place for it. So museum shows would be great. I have so many different ideas. I'm working on a clothing line now.
Ooh.
That's like, yeah, it's when I got all of the mudra dresses printed, I was paying per yard. So I had all this extra space in the yardage. So I got all this stuff printed, and then I'm making them into clothes. And so I'm making a clothing line that I want to have, like, it's called Spirit Body. And I want to have shows and videos with that. But the museum show format, I mean, I loved doing this. I'd really like to have that. I never even was like the goal of being an artist or showing, or I never had that goal at all. And I really never had like almost any goal, which is weird to say. And that's why I always feel sort of uncomfortable even calling myself an artist, even though there's no other word for it. But it's just because I never really was like, I want to make art. It was just like, I want to make these things.
Art sort of just happened to you.
I guess. I mean, I was just wanted to make clothes, and then it became bigger and took it off the body and blah, blah, and it became sculptural. But here's where it is now. So in 10 years, I mean, I'm interested to see where that's going to go too. But definitely I would like to do, fill up museums.
Nice. Are you doing any programs like with the Morris Museum associated with this show? Like, are you doing any like lecture series or, I don't know, workshops or anything like that?
I did a talk the beginning of March, I think it was March. Yeah, March. And I don't have anything planned yet. We were talking about I do this like it's like usually 3 or 4 hour. It's like a meditation lecture series. It's called Feeding Your Demons, but I basically give you a glimpse into like, how it goes through a meditation. It's a visualization meditation. And then we make work based on the visualization. But we were talking about that, but I haven't planned anything out with them yet. But I could if people are interested.
Yeah, that's very cool. Let me know if you do set something up.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. I thought I was going to ask you one more thing, and now I cannot remember. But the show's up until July 10th.
Yeah,
I think
July 10th.
Awesome.
Yep. It'll be at a gallery in Times Square, but it's not the same. Go see it in the museum, because the gallery in Times Square, it's not the same format. Okay. It's just kind of different pieces scattered throughout. And then who knows where. If anybody has any other places to put it, I'm happy to do that too afterwards.
Okay, awesome. Oh, I know what I was going to ask about Spirit Body, the clothing line. Is it something that's going to be, are you trying to make like multiples of stuff where it's for sort of mass consumption, or are you just doing like one-off pieces?
I'm doing one-off pieces because I'm making everything now, and I eventually want it to get there. I mean, I have an Etsy store now that I have all this printed stuff on. So yeah, I would like to eventually get it there, but it's like a big investment kind of time and energy. So I have to like do it one by one and then see where it goes and then kind of continue. But yeah, for sure, I would like to bring it there. I want to make, I don't know, I just have these images of videos and shows, and especially doing the Dissolutions video. I just want to make more videos.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, video runways and stuff like that, but with, all the concepts behind them.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Erik, for chatting with me. Thank you for just lending your time and your insight. And I feel like this is a very, it's such a great conversation, very intriguing, and I feel like I need to go do some inner work now. And
I feel like I almost would never encourage anyone to start, but if they're going to start, do it all the way,
Yeah.
But I do appreciate that. Thank you. And I love the podcast, and I'm super happy to be on it.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And you guys go see the show if you can, if you're in the tri-state, NYC area. All right. Thanks, Erik. I'm sure we'll be seeing you around soon. Check the show notes of each episode to get the website and Instagram for each of the fiber artists I speak with. Be sure to give them a follow. And you can view video from this podcast on neuromastudio.com/thefiberartistpodcast. If you enjoy the Fiber Artist Podcast, go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you for listening.